Let's call a meeting to order for February, not February, March 12th, 2026. Mr. Hillman, would you call roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Hillsman, yes. Mrs. Parker. Mr. Sanchez,
Here.
Mr. Standifer. Mr. Watkins
Here.
and Mr. Willie.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, item 3 is approval of minutes. I will entertain a motion.
I motion to approve the minutes for our meeting on February.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Item 4, staff reports, updates, public works director.
Okay, we have a couple of projects going. We still have the parking lot at the softball complex being redone. The company took a short break to do a different project. We're supposed to be back on it pretty soon, still with the same completion date. By the end of the month, they should have it completed. We're about to start 2 street projects. One's gonna be 9th Street right here at the other side of City Park, going to Globe. I don't know if you've driven down that in a while. It's quite a mess. So they're gonna do a mill and fill and everything. They should start that project tomorrow. They're gonna start doing stuff, getting the equipment set with on probably Friday or by Monday. They'll start there. And then the other project that we're gonna do is the little portion of 18th Street between Ithaca and Kilgore. That's one of our main thoroughways through town. And if you've driven through there, there's a section that's really bad on it. We can't fix it. So right now, our main goal is to actually do all of 18th Street, and we're barely planning design for drainage and all that. So for right now, we're gonna fix that portion with mill and fill. And so that project will be kind of right when they're wrapping up this one, they'll be going to 18th Street. So that one should be done by the 10th of April. So both of them should be wrapped up within a month of doing that, probably a couple weeks for each one. 18th Street, they have plans of 1 lane at a time, keep traffic flowing, is what the contractor told us. So it might take a little bit longer just because they're having to do it that way. But those are the major projects that we got going on to Public Works.
So 18.
Nope, nothing I could think of right now.
Okay. Item 5, discussion action items. A, cemetery staff self-sustaining plan. Donation plan.
I can talk through this. I'll probably be on the next one as well. Let me see someone to bring up.
The microphone should work with your seat if you want to stay seated.
Okay, cool. So we started talking about the cemetery improvements, expansion, and to a certain extent, self-sustaining. Right now, the cemetery operates as a general fund. And I firmly believe that we would probably be better served by having it as an enterprise fund where it tries to pay for itself as we go forward. So I started running numbers and looking at throughput, i.e. how many burials we conduct per year and other things. And with certain applications and putting this into a enterprise fund, the cemetery can be self-sustaining. So if we were to inject some funds into an endowment, not a trust, and we were to start to build this endowment over time, within about 10 years, the cemetery would be fully self-sustaining for all its operational costs on a year-to-year basis. Expansion could also be expansion, modification, improvements, and things. As the endowment grows, the cemetery improvement can grow as well, and it would be basically self-perpetuating than it is when we move forward. So the data, I have rough order of magnitude data. It's all very positive. I'm not going to go over the data right now, but what I'm going to tell you is I did work out a donation kind of concept, how that would work, an endowment concept where the city cemetery board would select, and the city would select a banking facility that the banking facility would support, an endowment with a board of directors. rates for cemetery or rates for burials would go up to a reasonable fee that's commensurate with other cemeteries in the area in New Mexico. A fair portion of that raised and for burial would go to the endowment for perpetual care going into the future. So the whole dynamic of the cemetery would change if we move forward with something like that in the future. It would support all the infrastructure required for the cemetery and all the infrastructure required for the growth of the cemetery. And right now, it would change the dynamic from static care, i.e. you're buried and then the family takes care of the stuff as you go, to perpetual care where somebody's buried and the city takes care of the cemetery and the burial sites basically forevermore going forward because the endowment would take care of that. The figures, rough order of magnitude that we're looking at is when the city is operating a little more efficiently. If we kick it off with about $250,000 a year, and we do that for about 5 years, which is doable when everything's adjusted correctly, it will be on a path to take care of itself. And then when the proportion of burials supplement that, it'll take off. So the bottom line is right now, it's a general fund, which doesn't work awesome. Change to an enterprise fund gives us more opportunities. And then we also, like I said, we're looking at putting the endowment together and things like that, changing from static care to perpetual care. So subject to questions, it's really open for discussion is what it is right now. Let's start talking about this.
Do we have any idea what our actual cost is, man and machine hour for burying?
We do. I don't have the data right here in front of me, but I will tell you, we operate upside down. We're paying more as a city to do it than we're recovering from people who are investing in that. So I think the last numbers I heard was about $400 to do an opening and a closing, which doesn't really meet what it costs us to do that.
I was just curious as far as looking at it in terms of what our actual cost is versus what we would be looking at commensurate in other places.
Yeah, understood.
Anything else?
No, that's basically what's on the table right now for discussion. And I do have quite a bit of knowledge in that if you would like to discuss like how it would work or anything like that, but I think I might have laid it out pretty well. But really the conversion from general fund to enterprise fund, setting up the structure so that the cemetery becomes self-sustaining in 10 years.
Scott, in your concept, there's a lot of people, once they have an interment out there, they want to donate money to a certain fund. Will allow that.
100%. So I have a model built out. Of course, it's pro forma, right? But the model would set up a receiving structure that those funds would go. We would probably request that they go to the endowment, and the endowment will continue to grow, and then that would take care of the families and insurance, etc.
I'm in favor of that, and the sooner we can get that started, I think the better off we're gonna be in the long run.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's kind of sad, but if we would have done this 10 or 15 or 20 years ago, we wouldn't be talking about cemetery right now. We just wouldn't. It would be one of the things that is already taken care of. And 10 or 20 years seems like a lot until you look back. I think when we're 20 years ago, and it seems like it was that long ago, right? So you have to start at some point, and I propose that we start looking at this a little bit deeper, start bringing this up and working it out as a committee so we can bring it forward to the city for consideration and possibly voting it in, and then we start making that happen. Now, let's not kid ourselves. The funds don't come from nowhere, right? There's no magical thinking. Prices will have to go up somewhat, but also the service will go up over time, and the service will go up to the things that I hear people asking about out of the cemetery now. Those will fall into place because it's more one, financially manageable, but also more predictable. We can, with a very reasonable level of accuracy, start to determine our growth rate and our physical footprint and where we need to go. And we can also determine when the time and space for funds are going to match that, where we can get that going. Right now, we kind of have to consider grant maybe not. We have to play it by ear. By putting this type of thing in place, we won't play it in the air. We'll definitively know where we're going to be in the future. And that becomes very predictive, especially when an endowment is set up with something from a bank or banking facility. They can talk about things like, hey, we're gonna put your money into an endowment fund, a 5.5 guaranteed rate of return with a 4.1% annual draw, et cetera. You can almost nail that with certainty on where you're gonna be in time and space with funds. So it becomes very predictable in the future and how you're gonna set your growth structure and care structure and stuff like that. So
Is this how most other places that you researched have been structuring their?
most is a big word, how some, a fair enough amount, yes. Yeah, 100%. So you do have private cemeteries, you know, that are owned by different things and agencies, so they work differently because they're private, simply for profit, so they wouldn't necessarily need an endowment. But other places like municipal or government owned facilities and things like that, yeah.
Any other questions from committee? No?
Okay, so I'm sorry. So as we move forward, we as a team will start bringing more conceptual data with relevant numbers and things like that, start talking about targets and dates when we want to bring forward to council.
Would that also include some of the new rules and things for the cemetery?
Well, I think
That
those,
go hand in hand with that.
I don't know that they would go hand in hand. The rules need to be brought up as well. But maybe if there are rules that bleed over into, say, the financial structure and endowment type things, yes. But if not, I think the rules for the cemetery will probably go, you know, become somewhat fluid in the future, because as the future changes, rules will probably change. So I think that the rules will probably be a little bit, there'll be financial rules, of course. But I think the day-to-day rules like entry, exit, how you manage the individual places. I think those are probably a little bit separate, but also have to be considered.
Mr. Gallegos, could I ask you a question? We do have did we form that cemetery committee?
We did. We were supposed to have a meeting last week, but for some reason it just went out to one person and the whole committee, so.
Right.
One second committee or work.
Oh, working group. not a
Working
committee.
group.
Yeah, we have a
Yes.
working group that's establishing the rules and all that stuff for the cemetery, so.
So I think the main thing to say is that this probably should and will move at a rapid pace, because there is a sense of urgency in what we're dealing with, financial expansion, all things, so be prepared.
Anything else? If not, we'll move to item 5B, solid waste management rates and resolution number 22-23-24. Discussing the next.
Okay, so resolution 22, 23, 24 was a resolution that was discussed, it was up for action and discussion in 2022. Where the city council considered rates on city services, services being three critical services: water, solid waste management or trash, and sewer. The applicable topic for today is trash. So in 2022, it was decided upon, considered and voted by resolution, you know, the resolution number, that there would be incremental rates to water, solid waste management, trash, and sewer. The rates were to go into effect on 1 January 2023, and they did. The rates per year were set in a 5-year group, where the first year, 2023, there'd be a 12% increase in trash, solid waste management fees. The second year, there would be an additional compounded 12%. And the third year, there'd be an additional compounded 12%. And the fourth year, there'd be additional 12% compounded, and in the fifth year, 12% compounded, which would be 60% overall over 5 years compounded, which would take it close to 70% over 5 years. That would have met the requirements going forward where we are today. We would be in the middle of that cycle. For whatever reason, it was billed, that 12% increase was billed in 2023 on day 1, January 1st, 2023, and carried through the cycle. And then in 2024, it went flat and just stayed at that 2023 rate. So in 2024, 2025, and even today, we're operating on billing rates that were established in 2022, went into effect in 23, a one-time 12% raise. And rates went in and then it went flat, so we're still operating on 2023 rates. When it was signed into resolution and action, then we would increase, so we would have been at a 36% increase today with compounded, which would take us a little closer to 40%, but we're not, which means we're operating at a deficit. So those were pre-programmed to meet the requirements of a pro forma analysis on where we needed to be with trash rates. We didn't raise those rates, so for all intents and purposes, it cost us more to deliver trash services than when we received from ourselves and residents in the city. So we're operating at a loss. As such, we need to relook at those numbers. We need to adhere to that resolution and we need to get back on track. When you hear arguments or you hear even discussion points on trash services, lack thereof, broken down equipment, etc., the only way that we've been able to operate, and this is unfortunate, but the only way we've been able to meet those gaps in funding is by deferred maintenance, deferred purchases, and other things. So what does that mean in real life? That means to make sure that we can empty the trash. We haven't been buying new trash trucks. We haven't been maintaining the trash trucks. We haven't been investing in critical infrastructure required to keep up with the Joneses, if you will, other municipalities, and offer those services at that level. Why? We have to defer those critical maintenance pieces, service pieces, and purchases just to try to make ends meet. And even at that, we're not making ends meet. We're taking from strategic reserves that the city has from days gone by. We're running out of those strategic reserves. So the bottom line is, right now, we are looking at every data point, every billing, every bill for the last 3 years. We're looking at every bit of income over the last 3 years. And we're crossing our T's and dotting our I's to ensure that the data that we're looking at is in fact solid. And then we're gonna bring that forward and go, okay, here's where we were supposed to be based on resolution. Unarguable, it's already been voted on and implemented. It's just somewhere along the line, for some reason, we stopped doing what we said we were going to do by vote resolution of the city council. So we're behind, we're upside down on this, and we need to get right side up. And we will bring, after we relook, because I'm on about my 5th set of data relooks, and now I'm starting to disseminate it to other sets of eyes. Once there's consensus that we have the right data, we're going to bring it forward to committee and council to devise a plan to get right. And the reality is we're not right, we're upside down, and somewhere along the line, the city stopped for some reason. That's not as important as how do we get back to being right, so that we afford the things that we say we're going to do projects. Now, why is this critical? Why is this critical? The city can only take on a certain amount of debt. And when people ask about grants and things, grants are amazing. We love them. We're going to keep pursuing them, and that's how it works, especially in the state of Mexico. But those grants often come with a match. So if there's $1 million grant and say 10% match, that means we have to come up with $100,000. For a municipality, $100,000 generally is not undoable. It's generally okay. That would be, not too much thought put into that one. But you can only do that so many times, and you have to have reserves, or you have to have available monies to do that. And when you're operating your critical services upside down, that debt can become unmanageable. You have to have your billing straight and your revenue straight, and you can't operate upside down, because pretty soon those grants that we received and we committed to, saying we would receive the 10 million and we would do our $1 million match. All of a sudden, when you're not balancing these things out, that match becomes untenable. You can't reach it. So we have to make sure that our revenues are commensurate with our expenditures, so that we at least balance out to zero, so that we can honor those matches that we said we would do. Almost any capital project going forward from a public works standpoint is probably highly likely going to have some kind of match to it. And even though we agree to do capital projects, and even though we receive external money, i.e. grants, without having our internal building straight, we run a razor's edge onto whether we can accept another grant or not. based on our debt that we carry forward. So be your questions. Man,
Yes, the rest of the story, I have one viewpoint that slightly differs from Mr. Midden, although being parallel. When that came up in 2022, the reason it did is because they hadn't had any price increases for 10 years. So at the point in time, it was already 10 years behind in 2022. So it's even further behind now. And the secondary point is that resolution is in effect right now legally. It is just not being enforced. So that's what we've got to do.
Any questions from community?
Would that also include like the deposits on water? Is there a deposit on the solid waste?
Is there deposits?
Yeah,
There's just a deposit on the pool. Whenever you do deposit for water, it just covers basically all their services.
I had a person called me yesterday asking them, because we're having to put a deposit down on solid waste. It's what they were told from somebody there at City Hall when they called to check on them.
Okay. Yep.
Just solid waste, not water? Or,
That's the way I understood it, yes.
yeah, on the utility billing, right, on the utility bill it includes water, sewer and solid waste, does it not?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah, so I think the one deposit covers
for all of that.
city services, yeah. So when you go to City Hall and you're at the cash receipt window or credit card receipt window in my case. One window is that's an extension of gas company. And the other one is city utilities, and I think that I'm pretty sure that the deposit is for city services, water, sewer, trash. So the way they asked the question is probably the way they got the answer. Do I pay a deposit for trash? Yes. You pay a deposit for sewer, and you pay a deposit for water. The one deposit is the same, if I'm not mistaken.
Do you know how close we are to that razor edge that you were talking about, where some of these other grants that we're applying for will be insurmountable to apply for because of the matches? Like,
I
how
do. I'm not willing to share it till I run the numbers a little closer,
Okay.
but it's a closer to not good than it is to good.
Any other questions? What action would you like to see from us today?
I really just want the awareness, so this is for discussion and action. Right now, I want awareness that this is coming, like the mayor said, this resolution 22, TAC 23, TAC 24, it's in effect. Right, it's in effect. We have to figure out where we are, and I'm pretty sure I know exactly where we are, but before disclosing that, I want multiple sets of eyes on it and to do some independent kind of assessments to make sure that I'm not just, my math isn't off or something like that. So, one, I want the committee to be aware. Two, we have to figure out how to get back on track, but look, the numbers are substantial. If we put this into effect tomorrow, it wouldn't feel good at the billing cycle. There would be a lot of, and with costs, what happened? Why did my rates go up? Why are my rates where they are? What about Clovis? What about Tucumcari, et cetera? Which I will tell you, when all things considered, we are under those communities even when our bills are adjusted to where they're supposed to be, we are under Clovis and other things like that. But I want you to be aware of it. If you would like to discuss it, we're open for discussion right now and talk about things. I'm hesitant to display the numbers that I've come up with right now because I just want to make sure and have other sets of eyes on that. It's not awesome. It does need to be adjusted, and if we don't adjust it, there will be a time on the calendar fairly soon that we're completely upside down because we are, to quote, a hackneyed expression, that we are robbing Peter to pay Paul, but in our case, we're robbing 2 or 3 different Peters to pay Paul. And we can't sustain that, so we gotta make it right.
So if we were to get it up to date today, that would mean a minimum of 36% increase this point.
That would mean 36% flat, not compounded, but you're gonna compound it because that's the way it goes, so you're gonna be closer to 40%.
Okay, what's our average utility bill in the city, you know?
I do know, I think on trash, I just had it in my notebook, give me a second.
$12.
I think it's-
$4 for trash, it's still solid way out.
I think the solid waste base rate was $12 is what I was looking at. That may be wrong.
I think we might be able to walk on that one.
Okay.
But, I think it's a little bit higher than that, and the base average, just average, if I have these, because this is where I was doing the math. I think it's around 54 with adjustments at this point,
And that's
so,
all utility.
no, that's not, so to give you an idea, let's go backwards. All utilities considered. Okay, so. It might, but I don't know where to go. Water, sewer, garbage, okay, so. Today at 2023 rates, one household here is 18.64
On solid waste.
on solid waste, yeah, that's before taxes or anything like that. That's before conservation, test fee, et cetera. So in one household, that's 18.64, so that 18.64 would go up at about 40%. To meet today's, if we would have adhered to the resolution. We would be at 18.64 multiplied by 0.41, something like that. Which would be about $7+ put us at,
About 7 points.
which would put us at 26.
So do you feel like if we took the whole increase at one time, that $7.60, $7.50 increase would be more than. Would be more than would be acceptable?
Well, it would put us on track.
No, I'm
So-
saying from our citizens, would that be something that,
You're asking me to answer for the citizens.
I know it's a hard.
I hear what you're saying. I think it would be, nobody likes to raise rates, not one dime. I think that the city's gonna receive heat, for doing it. And the thing that I have to consider as city manager is right now as public works, you're considering trash. Just like we talked about with the, deposit, this will go trash, water, sewer, which will be substantially more than the $7 increase. So we have to consider all of those things at our side. On your side, it's just trash. Does the city need that? Absolutely. And I will tell you, even that will not get us to where we need to be. Now, let me tell you really quick so you understand. The other municipalities that I checked in New Mexico, standard business practice. Standard business practice is they check with the consumer price index. Pro forma data, meaning what the government feels like the cost of living is going to go up for that year, ahead of that year. For two types of municipalities, rural or city, in our case, or rural or non-rural. In our case, it'll be rural. So most of the communities around here, based on my research, factored in every year a 4% CPI adjustment. They do it every year. It's just added to it. And that's why they've been able to not get setbacks. Somewhere along the line, Portales, and I'm talking over 20 years ago, based on our data that we've been looking up, Portales would do these 5-year billing increments. So they would propose and vote on a 5-year consistent rate increase. And then maybe they got back to it, maybe they didn't. And they would use that as kind of a methodology, it appears, to adjust their rates as opposed to sticking with a kind of standard business practice of a 4% or whatever was advertised. CPI adjustment, which seems to be working pretty well for some of the other cities. So when there was a hiccup and someone missed that or something, that 5-year billing cycle, it really caused Portales to sit back and start selling trash services for less than cost the city to do the trash services without keeping up with the CPI and things like that. Then the city had to play catch up. Just to get to where they should be, but the economy kept kind of moving forward. Does that make sense? Yeah, so I would argue, once we get this straight, we have to take a holistic approach to reviewing our systemic approach to getting this done financially. And kind of look very closely at taking the CPI model, which is highly recommended, and saying, listen, we don't want to make a profit. That's not what we're in the business of doing. We're in the business of providing services basically at cost to keep the city, where it needs to be. We have to buy gas, so we have to buy diesel, we have to buy brake pads, we have to buy tires, we have to buy all of that and pay taxes on it too. And so when the cost of living in the United States goes up, it goes up for municipalities as well. So we have to make those rate adjustments just to keep up, to keep to zero. And somewhere along the line that didn't happen. We fell back, have to do adjustments, I'm kind of repeating myself, but just catching up. As silly as it sounds, just catching up, we're still almost behind because we haven't done a CPI adjustments, okay? So that's a lot of gobbledygook to kind of answer a question. It is problematic and we do have to get there. Without getting there, it is undeniable. I brought this up to another committee. It's kind of like the scene in the movie Titanic where the ship's captain asked the engineer, he says, so are we okay? Sorry about that. That's Albuquerque. I probably should get that or something. The ship's captain asked the engineer, he said, we seem to be fine. He said, we're not fine. The ship will sink. So what do we do?
So is it reasonable then to look at this maybe in a 2-year situation? Look at the numbers and see what it would cost to make the increase for 26 and then again in 27 to catch us up where we should have been with a 5-year plan?
I believe moving forward, we will have to consider all things financially. And make a decision to get rapidly on track. But also being considerate of folks who that's going to be problematic, i.e. they're operating on a tight household budget. What that means, I believe the city will have to take some considerations on that and how to really catch up. And get to where we need to be. And implement a plan, but we can't deny the fact that we have to get there.
Would it be reasonable to do that over 2 years? Just like do it all the time?
I think that it's reasonable to do, I think there's multiple answers to that question. And I'm starting to sound like a politician, but let me explain. I think for a certain demographic, it would be fine for those who can as we formulate this out. I think some households can look at it and go, yeah, I don't like that at all, wish it didn't happen, but I can do that. I think other households are gonna have to look at it, though, I don't look at it like that at all, and I can't do that, so what are you gonna do for me? And in that case, we would make an extended scale to pay little bits to get to where we need to be. And that's my recommendation on some of the research I did. So I think there's 2 to 3 answers to your question. Within 2 years, I think for the extended scale to 2 years, for the households that had a little bit more problem meeting those financial requirements, 2 years is completely reasonable. For others, I think, they're ripping the Band-Aid off and just start paying the rate and not carrying a little bit of debt forward. We just manage it. I hope I answered your question.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. What time frame do you think would work better, or is that something you'd like to come back with us after you do your study?
I gotta look at my data. I think 2 years was recommended on one of my extended plans for folks who can't, it doesn't fit in their budget quite as well. And honestly, I think immediacy is required for folks who can't.
So to put one thing in perspective, this resolution that is actually now in place calls for the plan to be reviewed every November 1st, and it hasn't been done. So there is already a provision to keep this plan under review each year.
But we could go ahead and make an adjustment now, because it's already an ordinance, we're just not enforcing it. So why couldn't we just go ahead and say, next month, it's going up X amount. And then November or whatever, we look at it again and start this whole process over again.
I'm gonna address that. Within the scope of Mr. Mitten's management, he's well within the scope to say, this is a resolution that was not enforced. And next month it will be enforced. He's within that scope, but I think he's wanting to take another look to make sure that previous decisions from previous administrations still apply. Because there were some substantial increases.
Yeah, there's a couple rough dynamics, and when I say rough, I don't mean like rough data, I mean like these are hard to deal with, right? We've borrowed money from the city. The city had a strategic reserve that is supposed to carry in case of like emergencies and things. We borrowed money from that to make ends meet on the and our finance director is doing an amazing job of digging in and finding out where some of this happened. So for all intents and purposes, to make ends meet, we borrowed against the future to just pay our bills. We engaged, now I say we, but to clarify, none of you were in this. Nobody in this room was in this. This happened, okay? How the budget was formed, so you know, the budget was formed in critical services, water, trash, and sewer. And the annual budget would be put together based on service requirements, but also based on critical infrastructure repair, upgrades, and so on. All those upgrades and things keep getting deferred. So the way they were able to kind of get to zero was to say, hey, I'm gonna get new trash trucks this year. And the trash trucks never come, but the funding for the trash trucks got moved over to pay the bills and cover some of the gaps of critical services. And whatever gaps couldn't be covered, they pulled from the strategic reserve and then covered the gaps, and they would balance out to zero. And it looks great on paper, but when you start to dig in there, we're looking at it going, oh my gosh, I see what happened now. It was pre-programmed to do things like get new dumpsters, get new trash trucks, grade the roads, get a motor grader, not the roads, but the alleys and all that. And then that was never done. The funds for that were allocated, but they were just moved over just to meet the critical service requirements. Meanwhile, the trash trucks are falling apart, the potholes are going in the alleyways and all that. And we're all asking, why is this happening? Why aren't we doing it? It's because we keep moving that thing forward. And when those strategic reserves run out, even that can't be met. And that's why we have to make those adjustments. I'm kind of drifting off to the why and not necessarily the how. So we have to figure out, could we pull the Band-Aid off and make it happen? Yes. But to recover and pay back some of those strategic reserves, one, I'm gonna need a legal review on that. In some cases, that's allowable. In some cases, it might not be as allowable. So that's gonna take a legal review. Two, before we go forward and say, yay, verily, we're gonna rip the Band-Aid off and this is what's gonna happen. We gotta make gosh darn sure that the numbers we're talking about are the numbers we're talking about. Can't just pull the Band-Aid off and say, we're gonna pay for the sins of our fathers, so to speak, and our math is off, because if it is, now we're in Dutch, you know. So we gotta make sure legally, are we in the right to make the adjustment for the sake of the city? 100%, absolutely, that's unequivocal. Paying back the borrowing that we did, so to speak, and borrowing is a big word, but that's kind of what it was. Paying that back and catching that strategic reserve back up, that's gonna take a legal review. So that's gonna take a minute. And this is kind of Gary to all of your question. Could we do this tomorrow? We could, but I think it's a more sanitary approach to relook the numbers, resetting that strategic reserve and making the adjustments that we need to as fast as we can, but also with respect and empathy to the families of the households that might strike a little harder than others. And we have to probably vote on a plan how to extend those paybacks so that it doesn't cause any more hardship than it absolutely needs to. And that's going to take a review, a plan review, some ideas and thoughts, and then implementation and a vote, because that's going to have to be locked in. And then it's going to have to go over to billing. Billing's going to have to set up a certain kind of billing structure for folks who elect to take the extended payment and get on track too. So it's you know, in a more like rigid black and white world, could we say make it happen and it happens 100%? Are we within our right to do that? We are. Doing that would probably cause more problems then it's worth it the minute, so we've got to find the steady approach with empathy and grace for the people who would cause the problems, so.
Well, even if we went half of what it should have been and implemented that now.
Yeah, and what,
No,
things like that.
to get things started again.
And those are approach items, I believe, that because, you know, if we're doing the absolute right thing, we rip the Band-Aid off and deal with it, right? But any other approach to get there is gonna have to be considered by council, and that's the things that we would start doing. We're gonna do it fast, you know, once we lock this in and make sure what we're looking at is what we're looking at. It will start taking action on it, but some of that action will have to be like what you just described as a technique, right? So that technique, whichever one is considered, discussed and then locked in. We'll pose some of those answers. We're not gonna just bring you a problem and say, your problem, deal with it. We're gonna bring you a problem and what we see as solution sets. And then we're gonna look for discussion on that, deliberation, and then bringing that board to council for a vote. We're not gonna bring problems without solutions.
When we have the Band-Aid pulled off, whether it's a year from now and things get back implemented. It's
Yeah.
like you said, some of the people that it's not gonna be that big a deal and others it is, but it's still gonna be a
Yeah,
Band-Aid
so
pulled
let me
off.
give you a realistic expectation of timelines. I want to do the work at the city hall level so that rate adjustments and getting back on track is commensurate with the date of the new budget. So a state FY and budget ends on the last day of June, it goes into effect on the first day of July. I want to have this codified, locked in and implemented, whatever the plan is on the first day of July moving forward. There's a bunch of reasons for that, including accounting and fiscal accountability for that. That's my target, right?
I think one of the most important things in this conversation is that some of these problems that we're having are being discovered as to why. When we look at the cemetery situation, when we look at the water and infrastructure situation, we're starting to discover why these problems exist. So consequently, the fixes, these are serious problems, so the fixes are not going to be real pleasant. Nobody likes new taxes, nobody likes higher bills, but everybody also has expectations to the services that they want to receive. So those kind of go hand in hand.
As far as action from the committee then today, would you like to see a motion to recommend that you continue with the plan to make increases 26 and 27, review in November of each year until that time to get this back up to the original five-year plan? We get 27.
If you can put all that in a vote and someone makes that motion, yes, that would be.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to that effect. Anyone want to make that motion?
So moved,
How do you want to word
just like you said,
it?
to get us back on track by starting the new budget,
1 July.
July 1.
There's no argument that we have to abide by the resolution. We can't make resolutions and just decide whether we're gonna use them or not. That's inarguable. I mean, we would lose in court. That's not the ask, really. The ask or the work that we need to do is find a palatable solution on how to get to where we're supposed to be. Or all residents can consider. Some residents are gonna go, oh gosh, that sucks. Here you go. Others are gonna go, that sucks, I can't do it. And then we need to consider those and figure out how they can do it. You know, over time intervals. That's the thing. So, the motion, I believe, and I'm not telling you what to do with the motion, should be something along the lines of. The billing needs to be straight in accordance with the resolution by 1 July. Our task is to develop a solution for folks to be able to meet that.
And that would be to recommend that to council.
I would recommend that to go to the council and like you said, just to get the plan going, however it takes.
And make no mistake, we're doing the same thing with water. Water's got two out of three things that we have to deal with water.
And Ms. Chris, could you read that motion to us?
It's recorded,
So let's figure it out right now.
Yeah.
So the motion is to bring to council a plan, a financial plan to get the trash billing, in accordance with the resolution 22, 23, 24 by 1 July 2026.
Yes. Mr. Watkins,
Yes.
agreeable with you for your motion?
Yes.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Do we need to roll call this, if it is something to do with the resolution? Because
Who do you think?
if we do a roll call vote,
Yeah.
Mr. Hiltman?
Okay. Mr. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Hillsman, yes. Mr. Sanchez,
Yes.
Mr. Watkins,
Yes.
Mr. Willie,
Yes.
do I need to do something with the two absent members? Okay, the motion is approved by roll call vote.
Motion carried.
We need to add this to the next agenda.
Well, we've already made a recommendation, voted on, so we can go forward and then carry on from council. I don't think it's coming back to us. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct, yes.
Go straight to council.
Well, we're gonna bring a plan to council, right?
Yes, I
So,
agree with you.
Yeah, so I think our task, what we're gonna see on future agendas, and we can put on the next one. Is, let's put on the next agenda. A plan brief, right, a brief of the plan. Concepts for, because what you're gonna do. Is bring to council a plan to get trash services billed in accordance with resolution 22, 23, 24. By 1 July. Okay, that's really the task. Our job here is to bring in front of you some solutions to that, i.e. we need to start bringing plans here and saying, here's how we think we can get there. Then you deliberate on the plans and say, okay, we think plan in order. You briefed us on solution A, B, and C. We think course of action B is our preferred course of action. C, I'm going out of order, is our second and last resort. Pull the Band-Aid off today would be course of action A or something like that. So we would rack and stack those and then bring those to council. Does that sound fair? So what you will see going forward on the next public works meeting is a briefing of the plan concepts on how to get there.
Mr. Hillman, can you put on our agenda for our next meeting?
Yes.
Thank you.
I could work with you, even if you just.
Okay.
Put like finance plan 20, July, I'll work with you, we'll rough that one out.
I have I actually printed off a copy, and I probably should have printed one off for everybody of the resolution 22, 23, 24. I can email it to the rest of the council members. If you want to look it over and see where all this began.
Yeah, I know our wheels start turning and try to divide the
Okay.
plan also.
Okay, after the meeting today, I think I have everybody's email. I'll just send you guys an email with the resolution.
Very good. Moving forward. Item 5C, ICIP, public works related projects and prioritization discussion.
Okay, it's so this is part of our ICIP, the list that I just gave you. And the list that I gave you is actually off the what we have in place at the current time right now. But what we're asking you is to look over the list and see if you have a different ranking for each of the projects. You turn it over to the one with the yellow side right here. So in the future, what we're gonna do, if you see in the blue, the big it's the description of what that project is. So this one's the Portal Stormwater Retention. And so if you look at the blue part, that's the description that we have actually that's submitted to Santa Fe.
Yes.
And so what I'm gonna try to do is get you a description for each one of these projects. That goes with like the Portal 17th Street improvements. Vehicles are kind of obvious for purchase, stuff like that, but the projects itself, we're gonna start going over each project. And try to break them down into phases and ask for one phase at a time. So like this, Portal stormwater retention, we're gonna ask for like design and plannings first. And break it down into smaller chunks. That way we can see if we can get the funding for each phase of this stuff, but. I know there's a lot on this 3 pages, plus I have new projects that are listed on the bottom. I haven't quite got funding amounts for each one yet. I'm working on those, but what we want you guys to do is look over each project, kind of rank them and come back with the recommendation of the ranking. It's kind of a lot for today. I would suggest that we take the next 2 weeks, look it over, and then come up with a ranking for new guys that we can go with straight to the ICIP committee with the suggestions.
Are you looking for top 3, top 5?
All
I think you need to
rank all of them. And if you look right here, you'll see like 2028, that's where it's ranked right now in 2028. And then there's 2029, 2030, 2031, and 2032. So if you think it needs to be moved up in the year or down in the year or
And rank before that.
yeah, or same year but higher up, we can do that. The one like the street sweeper right now, number 2, that's highlighted in red, we think the governor signed off on that one now, so if she did, then that will come off our list. We'll let you know, if not, it'll stay on the list. So
us what the colors mean, Pat.
honestly, these are the colors that Miss McVeigh had on hers, and I just forgot to unhighlight everything when I printed it out, so.
Obviously, there is a key on one of the pages,
Yeah.
if you print off the key.
So,
It doesn't have any color.
There's no key.
no, I didn't attach the key to this, but it's okay, cause you guys get to rank them the way you wanna rank them, and then we'll. Go from there. If you have any questions about a particular project. You could send me an email. I'll make sure I'll get the description of it and get it back to you. I'll let you know right now. We're probably gonna have to redo the Portal stormwater retention. Just because of simple facts, some of the stuff is not correct on the description. We just want to make sure everything's right, but in the future, that's the way it's gonna look is. This with the good descriptions, you know exactly what's the project proposed to be.
Okay, so these sheets will be our homework for the next 2 weeks.
Yes, homework.
Anything that we need to take action on for that?
No, any discussion if you want right now, on the new projects, the parking structure for equipment. I wanna build just a, kind of like the bus barn has, where we can park our equipment underneath it, cause right now, if it hells, we don't have nothing and it just destroys our equipment, so. We need something to protect our equipment, especially if we're gonna start buying some new stuff, so. My recommendation for that would be kind of high on it, maybe even this year, is. And move forward, and I'll get numbers on approximate pricing for that one as we go on.
Any other questions from committee?
For some of these, you know, I see you have a front end loader on here. Do we get a list of your current fleet and like status on whether you replace?
You can, I'm working on that, I don't quite have it completed yet, so. That's one of the other things that I am currently working on is all the asset management part of this. So, but I can get you a preliminary list of what I have.
Any other questions? If not, we'll move forward with item B, road asset management software, discussion and action. Okay.
All right, so. Right now, what I'm requesting is if we be able to obtain some roadway software to be able to do an assessment of all of our roads. I have been meeting with roadway asset services. They gave me a quote of. Go. So just the basic service just for the assessment of the road itself is $38,000. And with that assessment, what they do is they bring in a van. And then it has all kinds of boxes around the van. It has different lasers and just different equipment. That they'll drive each road in Portales. With the wider roads, they'll drive twice. And then they can give us assessments and a value to each road of what condition it's in. This particular one can actually give you the width of cracks and the depths and all that stuff of each one, and then it'll break it down into where we could actually see on a map. You'll highlight like the worst roads in red, and we can just actually see it. And from that, we can actually build our plan of how we're gonna attack our roads in Portales. What actually needs to be replaced and what actually just needs to be an overlay or something to protect that road. Just an overall assessment. There is some add-ons if we wanted to, like if we want them to add in the curb and gutters, or if we want them to add all the street signs and everything else. Just depends on how far we want to go with this, but my suggestion is that we do get a program like this and go with it, so we can at least get a starting point to our roadways, our roadways. Right now, we're going off the what's in the heads of some of our street guys. But I it's kind of horrible, but I just did an assessment of our street department. 75% of our street department's less than a year on. We only have 2 guys that's been over 2 years on the street department. So, they're not staying very long, and whatever's in their head leaves with them. So we actually need a plan so we know where to go in the future with this. Also, what will this do is help us with our ICIP, so we can plan our ICIP better with our road projects. And also just our grant funding will help Ms. McBady out here with our grant funding. She'll know exactly what we're needing to do in the following years for each for each of our roads when she applies for the grants and stuff like that. Currently, right now, we're just going off, oh, this one looks bad, let's do this one. Okay, this one looks bad, let's do this one. So we need a good plan of how we're gonna do our road.
Take some subjectivity out of it.
Yes, there is some other ones that are low cost, AI kind of deals, but it's one of those things. I think you get what you pay for. So right now, this system to me looks like one of the better systems. It also, if we use these guys as our assessment. I am also looking at other software. It's called GeoGov to actually manage all of our assets and everything else. And we can actually incorporate this mapping into GeoGov, and they'll just take over our mapping part at that point. So
What did you say the cost is?
So just for the initial is 38,750, and then there's different things we can add on depending on what we think is important. Like, do we want an inventory of our curb and gutter, or do we want to do street signs, inventory sign and support, which is it's kind of a lot to do the signs. It's about $10,000, $11,000 to add that on. But that would also give us an assessment. That part will actually tell us what signs need to be replaced, if we need a sign there, or just everything about our signs. So
Can you email that to us as well, the quote that you received from them?
I could.
Any questions from me?
Well, I'm a believer if we don't get started with some of this, we're already behind the power curve right now. We need some form of evaluation of our street. That's the biggest, people have the biggest gripe about our roads. And this will give us an evaluation of that.
Not only evaluation, but it'll be unbiased and unemotional.
Yes.
So it's not like your ward got everything and ours didn't,
What would you want to add to that?
I think so.
Street signs, curb and gutter?
I think street signs probably be the one I would do.
I think street signs for a safety standpoint and like an emergency response standpoint to,
Yeah, and there's two other ones on here, manhole inventory and water valve inventory. Which would probably be good, because I'll give you an example, when we had the little project where the streets, where it collapsed that line. And it flooded the street. My water guys were on their hands and knees in the water trying to find a valve in the middle of the road. Which if it was documented somewhere, they'd know exactly where it was. You know, and I think an overlay actually covered it up, so they couldn't find it right away. So one of those might help. Those are about 4,000 each. That's an additional 8,000. So,
Say added on.
yeah, but if we get too high, I will have to go to RFP or something like that. So I don't want to quite do that.
I love the concept of this. I don't know if I like so much street sign inventory. I feel like that could be something we can save money on and do ourselves.
Well,
we,
we've got some signs that, yeah, you can tell what it is, but you can't, just because it's,
And even if we get the software, we'll have an inventory of what it is, but we still have to use man ourselves. So
Yeah.
Well, as we go right now with street signs, if we find one, we fix it.
Right.
If this thing inventories it for us right there. When they have a sign making day, they can go, okay, I need 28 stop signs, and they'll know exactly where to go put them. So it does speed up the process, but for us, but yes. Just like anything, they could cut the cost too, and we can manually do it, but
And then maybe once some of these fees that we're gonna look at increasing and get on track with our ordinance. Maybe in the future that, look at, that way we're not trying to. You know. get this-
bottom line, I would love the assessment done on the streets. That's my.
Yeah, that's
ultimate
the
goal.
main one.
Yeah, that's my goal right there.
And I'd like to add some food for thought. So Ms. McVeigh, you know, she's tasked amongst others, but primarily tasked with putting in grant applications for capital projects. And a lot of these capital projects, federal and state grants, are looking for innovative technologies and independent assessments of road conditions and other things. When we go up there and we say, hey, we think this road is in need of repair, it's compelling. But when an accepted application is accepted nationwide for highways, byways, and everything in between, when those things are recognized and whatnot, and we put it in there and say, this application determined that the following roads are in whatever state of repair, and recommends a rack and stack, kind of do this first, second, third, or fourth. When that goes into that grant application process, it's like a huge potential multiplier on that thing. So whatever it seems like we're spending money on, if this is 38 or 48 or 58 or $88,000, the grants that are going to continue to get associated with these things in the future are going to be in the billions of dollars. So I don't see this as a cost, I see this as actually a revenue at some point. We're just putting a little bit of money, a little bit in the bucket that's going to come back and just, you know, dump some money towards us. It's going to help get through the so what factor. So what determined the road needed to be fixed? This software that everybody's using as an industry standard, and that's what we're really looking at.
And for New Mexico, they've already worked with Albuquerque, Rio Rancho, Farmington, and Las Cruces. So our bigger towns in the state, so.
So it'll give us evaluation of manholes, signage, curbs and gutters. Is there anything else? Water valves. Water valves.
Water valves. Yep, and then, you know, they got other stuff, but I don't think it's necessary. It's just like markings and streetlights. We know where streetlights are. So, yeah, it's stuff that we don't need, so. So basic cost $38,750 for just the streets, and then the add-ons. Yeah, I mean,
Does that include the add-ons where we can see what the cost would?
no, the add-ons are different, you know, like the sign support was 10,790, and then manhole inventory is 4,150, and same price for water valves. So they just mark them in there, and what's good about that too is if we do go to this other GeoGov software, that asset management program will actually manage our water lines as well. So we can incorporate the valves into that water project with the maps with that will help on the water side of things. So
I would entertain a motion on this item.
I move that we move forward with the proposal to have the road asset management software plan put forward.
Well, I think we need to go farther. I think we need to recommend. And I don't know how you need to word, we need to recommend that this capability, because we're gonna have to hire this firm to come in here and do that. To do the evaluation of our roads, street signs, manhole covers, curbs and gutters. Those five things that Pat wanted to get done. Because it's gonna save us money when Joe has to go and write these grants. We've already got that, it's an insurance policy.
Right.
So.
Okay,
Yep.
Mr. Hillsman, are you willing to retract or amend your motion?
I'm willing to retract the motion and go with what Mr. Woolley has clarified.
I make a motion that we take to council of, and recommend that we purchase or contract with this capability, this service to do roads, curbs and gutters, street signs, manhole covers,
Water meter.
water valves.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Item E, cemetery management software, discussion and action.
Find that one. So what I'm asking for today is for us to be able to move forward with a software for the cemetery. The one I've been looking at is SimSites. And what they can do is they can actually do the entire mapping of our cemetery, the old one. And once we get the plan for the new one, they can incorporate the new one. They could actually, they have different modules that we can do with SimSites. One's gonna be an app that the users can use, and once they go into our cemetery, they can actually scan a QR code and it'll take them to them, and then they can look up a loved one's gravesite and they'll map it straight to them. In the future, if we do start going to where we actually start selling the plots and we accept the money, we can actually incorporate those modules into this. Or if we could actually sell the plots from the computer itself. They wouldn't have to go in if they didn't want to speak to anybody. They could pick their plots. They can purchase them right there, pay for them online, and different things, to pay for services online. So once we get to that point, right now it's just to implement the whole site. They can map it and we can start doing plotting our next sections. The way we're doing it right now is everything is kept on Excel spreadsheet. So if that spreadsheet gets messed up, we're gonna be really hurting. It happened before and they had to go back and redo everything. And so this will actually incorporate the maps and everything into one little site and keep track of everything. JC will have access to it too out there. So if somebody's going out there and goes, hey, what about this plot right here? You can pull up his tablet or his laptop or his phone and he can look at it right there and there. Currently what happens is he meets with somebody on site. Hold on, he has to go back to the shop, look it up, go back. And sometimes he makes a mistake and it's not the right plot, then he has to go back, and so it's gonna save time, money, and actually effort in the long run for us. Plus that gives us a viable option to track the plots and keep track of everything at the cemetery.
I'll tell you how bad it was when we buried my mother-in-law. She thought her plot was on the right-hand side of Elton. Was on the left-hand side. And that's how that Excel spreadsheet, how far off it was. They've got to have something.
Yeah, so cemetery, we've met with the working groups, met one time. We've come up with a lot of ideas. Green barrel, cremations and different things like that. I've spoken with them. They said they can actually incorporate everything that we've already talked about in our working group into this in the future, once we get it designed. So right now, this one is, for implementation, it's 20,500, and then after that, it's 3,000 a year. To maintain it. So
Say that one more time.
20,500.
Are we gonna roll that cost somehow into the price? Make sure that our plots per unit is gonna be included with that program.
Yeah, in the future, especially with the way we talked about making sure the cemetery is self-sufficient.
It's all part of a master plan.
Yeah, it'll be part of that plan as well.
And here's something to think about along those lines. Anecdotally, it's not connected to this, but just anecdotally, right? So we do have contract engineering firms that work through Muni League and stuff like that. A lot of times they say things like, hey, we're already connected, we have a standing contract with you, we'll help you with designs and things you need. Assessments, design surveys. So we kind of climbed into the casket, no pun intended, with one of them recently because we needed some help with our corrective action plan for wastewater treatment plant. So comparative here is what I'm doing. Engineers already kind of working with us, one of the groups of engineers already works with us, says we'll write your corrective action plan. We said, okay, let's go ahead and do that. So they start looking at it. They said, we'll do it and it'll be done in a couple of weeks. Well, it's been a handful of months now. And they came back with a bill of $88,000. So like, yeah, so plans, just plans and management, stuff like that. The least expensive one I've seen so far in the last 8 months has been $88,000. So when we can defer those kinds of acceptable expenses, everybody agrees to that, not necessarily us, but this is just what the industry seems to do. But when we can defer some of those types of things to a program that helps us manage assets instead of one of the people who are aligned with us that are going to cost us $80,000 or $100,000 every time we need to look at a concept, a plan, a review, an external evaluation, an analysis, whatever, we are making money. So when I hear Pat and others talk about 30,000 or 20,000, I'm hearing I'm making money because I'm not paying 88,000 for one of our partners to help us do something.
It's not cost savings, it's cost avoidance.
100%.
Additionally, one of the things that has plagued Portales is a generational loss of knowledge. So every few years, we have key personnel retire. We have lost irrigation line locations. We have lost water valve locations. We have lost cemetery knowledge. And some years are much worse than others. When you have somebody like, it's only a matter of years before JC probably retires. With him is going to go a tremendous amount of knowledge. And I know when the previous public works director left, he took a lot of knowledge of this city with him. So we're talking a lot about this software stuff, but what it's also doing is giving this city an insurance policy that a lot of that knowledge stays right where it's at. We don't have to keep starting over every 5 or 10, 20 years. So at any rate.
And with that,
If the SEMsite company were to go out of business, will we be able to retain our records that we've
yes,
created with them?
they advise they would, but I would make sure that that's in our contract as well when we do this, is that the data is ours. So, and it usually is with any software. But
Well, then I motion to propose this to the council that we purchase the cemetery management software.
Second,
More discussion? That's one question. Is your motion include the original cost of the software plus the yearly fee to continue?
Yes, yeah, this to include the yearly fee that it costs.
yes.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Item F, future meeting dates and times. This continuing up.
Okay, so the next meeting will be. On the calendar. Next meeting is gonna be the 26th. You wanna meet at 9 or 9:30?
Discussing,
I would like it to be at 9.
9 o'clock, fine, sure.
You wanna
Maybe
continue
one Thursday.
meeting every 2 weeks, or do you wanna do once a month?
We,
I like that.
You know, until we get everything situated, I think we've got a lot of stuff we gotta do, so.
Yeah, I don't think we're running out of topics yet, every 2 weeks, so.
so motion is every other week on Thursday at 9 o'clock. Do I have a second?
I say,
All in favor, say aye.
I,
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. No other items on our agendas that will already say we were in.
One sec. One last item, Pat, would you make sure that the two absent members get a copy of this
Yes.
and whatever else you were gonna mail out to?
That was, I think that was me.
And then I did request the.
I'll get you the.
Equipment list.
Yeah,
Yes,
no.
if you can make sure the absent members have those copies, so. Thank you.
If nothing else, we'll consider ourselves adjourned.